Hello everyone, my name is Jerry and welcome to the channel for Lost Souls. I wanted to tell you an adventurous story of something I encountered once, but at the time I didn't realize the significance it would have later in years. My vehicle had broken down in southern Ontario as I was on my way back home to Saskatchewan after visiting a relative. I had no choice but to leave it there and simply start hitchhiking. I had what I thought was enough money for food and everything, but it was taking a longer time to get rides than I thought. Several times the rides were only short distances. I did get a motel room once, but that took half my money supply. I usually sleep in my vehicle when traveling just to cut down on costs. A day later, on the same morning of those 9/11 attacks in the U.S., I was resting under a bridge near Sudbury, Ontario, because there was really thick fog and nobody would have seen me on the side of the road anyways. The next day, at one point, I was standing on the side of the road near a small roadside stop. There was a little restaurant there, but I only had a couple dollars left in my pocket. A man came out of the restaurant carrying a bag of food. He walked over to me and handed me a burger. I said, "Wow, thank you, you didn't have to do that." As he walked away, he said, "Everybody's got to eat," and didn't appear to want to have any conversation with me. He just wanted to get going. The next day, I walked into Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, after being dropped off on the outskirts of it. It was pouring rain that day, and I was soaking wet, and I was cold and hungry. I was feeling so exhausted with painful blisters on my feet. Eventually, I came by a provincial police station at the OPP, and I decided to go in and ask if I could get any help. They told me there was no shelters around, but advised me to go see the local police because they have a system in place that may be able to help me. It was still quite the walk to get there, but I wasn't giving up. The policewoman at the desk told me they have a transient fund, but the most they could do for me is put me up in a hotel for one night with a meal. I looked at her and said, "Being able to eat and rest for one night is like winning the lottery right now." After giving me the paperwork and pointing me in the right direction, she advised me to visit social services the next morning, and they just may be gracious enough to give me a bus ticket back home. So after grabbing some food, I went to get all settled in the room. I sat down on the bed and struggled to peel my socks off over the stinging blisters. I put my feet up and laid back, and it was such a great feeling of relief. I was so tired, and I just fell asleep, and I was out for the night. As a matter of fact, I slept so long that when I woke up, it was getting close to the checkout time. So I scurried to get cleaned up and grab my stuff. I noticed in my bag of clothes, the bottle of shampoo had opened up somewhere on my travels. So some of my clothes were smelling like a hair salon. Okay, the next morning when I got to social services building, I didn't have high hopes in anything, but to my surprise, they did agree to helping me get back home. They gave me a requisition for a bus ticket as well as a voucher to grab some food for the trip, which was at a store right beside the bus depot. So when I got to the store, I grabbed some food and went into the bus station and showed him the paperwork, and he started printing out the ticket. And then I asked him, I says, "Hey, when does the next bus leave?" He pointed out the window and said, "That's it right there. It's leaving in 15 minutes. And I laughed and I said, "Okay, now, that's quick service." As the bus started driving down the highway, I was so overwhelmed with joy that I didn't have to walk anymore. And ironically, I never hitchhiked again after that. Every time I think about that trip with its trials and tribulations, I truly believe God was there all along, especially when that stranger walked up to me with a burger and said, "Everybody's got to eat." I just didn't realize it at the time. Several years later, I broke my own heart one night, at least I believe I did, when I went to the store. A man was standing outside and asked me for spare change, but I explained to him I never carry cash anymore because I'm always using my debit card. When I got home, I remembered that stranger on the side of the highway. Then I had the most eerie feeling of what I think was guilt that I've ever had before. I'd never felt it before. Realizing I could have bought some food inside that store and did the same thing for him as that stranger did for me. Because no matter how bad of a situation people get themselves into, everybody's got to eat. That was quite the adventure for me, and I actually learned. So Thank you, everybody, for listening, and may God bless you.